Shirone did not want to wake up. It was as though he was paralyzed by an unseen force, his whole body stiff and unable to move even an inch. In his mind, he thought, that's right, once again, I'm trapped in a nightmare. Like the times before, he drifted toward the endless void, surrounded by a dim space where the stars spun and moved endlessly. And at the end of this journey, a giant nebula appeared, emitting a twisted, distorted light as if waiting for him. But this time, something was very different. Normally, he would snap awake right at this moment. But no, something strange was happening. What Shirone felt was a string of golden, shimmering particles, mystical and sparkling like celestial gems. They intertwined, forming an image that resembled a shattered mirror, so mysterious that even Shirone couldn't fully comprehend what it was. Suddenly, he widened his eyes. Before him was a mesmerizing scene, so beautiful that words couldn't describe it. Shirone's whole body seemed to dissolve, merging with that strange space. He broke into a cold sweat, jolting awake, his heart pounding fiercely. In his panic, he realized one thing: the dream had changed. Shirone blankly wondered, what is this? Could yesterday's experience have caused everything to change? On the wall, the clock's hands slowly pointed to almost 1 p.m. He hadn't yet regained his senses, lying still on the bed, his eyes wide open, his mouth faintly moving. But right above him, a chain of brilliant golden beads, so breathtakingly beautiful, spun endlessly, forming sparkling circles around Shirone. He gripped the blanket tightly in his hands, bewildered, and muttered, what are these things? Quickly sitting up, Shirone got out of bed, holding the piece of paper with Need and Aruki's message. It was scrawled with the words, we're heading to the casino. As long as we calculate and predict Aruki's behavior, we'll get rich. You'll see. Below it were the 2 grinning faces of them. Shirone helplessly cried out, oh my God, he mumbled, a casino? Feels like those 2 are going to come back empty-handed. Anyway, 3 days of suspension. What should I do now? In Shirone's mind, thoughts of his parents back home briefly crossed his mind. He wondered if he should take this opportunity to visit them. He imagined the scene where his parents would be stunned, then bombard him with questions. What? Suspended? You're being punished? At that thought, Shirone immediately dismissed the idea. Forget it, I have to keep this secret. A moment later, Shirone was dressed neatly, standing in front of the mirror, smiling with satisfaction. He carefully adjusted the cuff of his shirt, his heart racing. I just remembered, there's something I really want to do, he said, his heart pounding as if it might leap out of his chest from excitement. After saying that, Shirone turned and walked away, unaware that the mysterious golden beads were silently following his figure. They gathered, forming a silhouette identical to Shirone, standing slightly tilted before the mirror as if he were still there. Soon, Shirone stopped in front of a well-maintained bookstore. He reached for the door handle, his heart fluttering. For the past few years, I've been dedicated to my studies. Now, I want to buy a novel for myself. I miss those old days. The painful memory suddenly surged in Shirone's mind. The boss's harsh, domineering voice from years ago echoed in his ears, as if it had just happened. No! Do you think you can put those filthy fingers anywhere you want? Back then, Shirone was just a poor boy in tattered clothes. Although he was different now, the haunting memories of being despised still lingered deep within his soul. Shirone anxiously wondered, what if they tell me not to touch anything again? What will I do? After a few seconds of hesitation, Shirone took a deep breath, made up his mind, and pushed the door to enter the bookstore. It was still the same shopkeeper from years ago, with her orange curly hair and the familiar blue dress. But instead of the arrogant attitude she had back then, she now greeted him with a warm, unexpectedly cheerful smile. Oh my, welcome, handsome customer. It's such an honor for you to visit this small shop. Are you here to pick out a book, or is there something special you need? The shopkeeper's enthusiasm made Shirone feel a little flustered. He awkwardly replied, no, I'm just here to buy a book. The shopkeeper smiled brightly. I see. Please feel free to choose at your leisure. Oh, I must say, you really are quite handsome. Shirone felt embarrassed, not used to such friendly treatment. He softly said, thank you. Inside, he thought, I can't believe she doesn't recognize me. It's only been 5 years. Watching the shopkeeper's back, Shirone wondered, have I really changed that much? After selecting the book he liked, Shirone walked up to the counter to pay. Looking at the gold coins Shirone handed over, the shopkeeper flattered, oh my, you're so generous. Thank you so much. Shirone held the book titled Raising Dragons to Defeat the Demon Lord, the book he had always dreamed of owning since he was young. He excitedly exclaimed, finally, I've got it. My favorite novel. This was the first book he had ever owned. Thinking this, Shirone hugged the book tightly, spinning around joyfully in the middle of the street, causing passersby to click their tongues in surprise. Wow, what kind of book is that? For a young master to be so enchanted by it, he hugged the book to his chest, smiling brightly. Good thing I managed to save up some of the allowance my family sent. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind, Shirone! A girl unexpectedly wrapped her arm around his. She looked at Shirone, her mouth breaking into a bright smile as she asked, Are you Shirone? Surprised by the sudden hug, Shirone's face turned bright red, his ears burning with heat as he panicked and asked, Who are you? The girl didn't answer but didn't let go either. She turned around and waved at someone behind her. It's really him. Hey, everyone, it's Shirone. After a moment of observation, Shirone suddenly realized the girl in front of him was someone he knew. That sweet voice, which had never changed since the old days. She was the innocent girl from back then, always watching Shirone whenever he got absorbed in his books. Shirone, are you reading again? When he was younger, every time Shirone sat under a tree with a book in his hand, a group of kids would gather around and tease him. Now, meeting them again, he still recognized them, and they immediately recognized him too. A muscular young man at the head of the crowd shouted loudly, Shirone, is it really you? Shirone widened his eyes and shouted, Anthor. Then he turned to the girl beside him and called her by her name. Huh, is that you, Lumina? Shirone exclaimed in surprise. Hearing him call her by name, Lumina joyfully shouted, That's right. Have you forgotten what I look like? Shirone stammered, I didn't recognize you at all. You're so beautiful now. He suddenly remembered that when they were young, Lumina was given the nickname Zaninos. At the mention of it, Lumina pouted, clearly displeased. She raised her fist, frowning. What? When we were kids, you dared say I wasn't pretty? Shirone quickly forced a smile and waved his hands. No, not exactly. His childhood friends immediately gathered around him, admiring him in awe. Each of them asked a question one after another. What's going on with you? You're dressed like a noble. Is that outfit really expensive? Wow, you've changed so much. Surrounded unexpectedly, Shirone flustered, nervously replying, This is... Just when he didn't know how to handle the situation, Anthor, the leader of the village kids from back then, spoke up. Shirone, it's been so long since we last met. How have you been lately? Anthor asked, his voice full of curiosity. I asked Lord Vincent, but he didn't reveal anything. Shirone looked at Anthor, feeling confused, unsure of how to explain. How should I tell them? He hesitated briefly, thinking to himself, Either way, they'll find out about me sooner or later. If I lie now, it'll definitely hurt them. Especially, finally, Shirone decided to be honest. He took a deep breath and said, I've been studying at the Magic Academy. As soon as he finished speaking, the group collectively gasped in surprise. Magic? The Magic Academy? Anthor's face suddenly darkened. He thought something to himself but didn't speak. Shirone drifted into old memories. He remembered when he was younger, Anthor had a strong build, a generous personality, and was always the leader of the kids in the village. Back then, when Anthor was 10 years old, he and the other children would often invite each other into the forest, ready for adventures filled with laughter and mischief. Suddenly, from a distance, Anthor blurted out, Shirone! He continued teasing, his voice full of mockery. You're reading again? Hearing the familiar voice, Shirone immediately turned around and responded, Anthor! Old memories flashed before his mind like vivid writing. Despite Anthor's generosity and strength, his weakness was perhaps his towering pride. The attention of the children suddenly shifted to the thick book in Shirone's hands. They marveled, so many words! He must be really smart. We don't even know how to read books like that. Hearing the whispers of admiration from the two boys behind him, Anthor could only remain silent, his gaze filled with displeasure. Then he lunged forward, quickly snatching the book from Shirone's hands and shouted, You don't even go to school, so what's the point of reading stuff like this? Overwhelmed by his force, Shirone couldn't resist, only letting out a few startled exclamations, confused. Anthor slung a small axe over his shoulder, standing tall and confident as he declared, You have to train your strength to be useful to society. In a small village deep in the mountains, where danger was ever present, there was an unwritten rule. You had to be strong to survive. At this thought, the image of the small Shirone appeared in Anthor's mind. He smiled gently and replied softly, That's right, I understand now, Anthor. The memories seemed to close, but then they resurfaced. Shirone let out a sigh of relief, as though he had just lifted a heavy burden off his chest. The next moment, Anthor handed the book back to him, saying, As long as you understand, the leader protects the village, and everyone follows the leader. That's how we survive here. This was the lesson Shirone had learned over the years living in the village. Then Anthor flashed a bright smile and extended his hand toward Shirone, eagerly inviting him. I'm going to play soccer. Want to come with me? Suddenly, a loud shout echoed from afar. Anthor! Lumina gripped a mop tightly, running over fiercely, and confronted him. I told you not to bully Shirone. Anthor, being hit by her blows, angrily yelled, "Who's bullying who, you idiot?" But Lumina didn't pay any attention to his excuses and continued shouting, "He's just recovered from being sick, and you're still doing this. What else would you call it if not bullying?" After being scolded, Anthor retorted angrily, "At this rate, no one will ever marry you." The memories faded, and Shirone smiled to himself, thinking, "Well, that's all from the past." Anthor, now awkward, spoke up, "I can't believe it. You really go to school?" Lumina was just as surprised, quickly asking, "You can use magic?" The friend beside them was eager, jumping in quickly. "Can you show us, please?" Shirone smiled awkwardly and replied, "Not really. I'm just learning, so I'm not very skilled yet. Besides, using magic outside the academy breaks the rules." Hearing this, the friend sighed in disappointment. "That's unlucky." Suddenly, Anthor noticed the book Shirone was holding tightly and laughed. "You're still carrying a book around with you like before, huh?" Then he reached out and quickly grabbed the book, saying, "Hey, let me see what the Magic Academy's book says." Surprised by Anthor's action, Shirone exclaimed, "Wait a minute." Inside, he panicked. "No, this is the novel I just bought for fun." Anthor's strength grew stronger. He successfully yanked the book from Shirone's hands. But in his haste, Anthor accidentally dropped the book on the ground. Shirone instinctively cried out, his mind racing, "My precious book." He quickly reached out to catch the falling book. As his hand nearly touched it, a flash of memory suddenly passed through his mind, so swift that it left him dizzy. Luckily, Shirone managed to catch the book in time. But the memory was so vivid, like a sharp knife, causing Shirone to feel a painful jolt. He tightly hugged the book and collapsed to the ground. Everyone around him panicked, asking worriedly, "Shirone, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Lumina immediately turned to confront Anthor. "Why did you do that again? You're not a kid anymore. Why are you bullying him?" Anthor, flustered, stammered, "I didn't do anything." Shirone weakly spoke up. "It's nothing. It was just a coincidence. Don't worry about me." Lumina, still worried, frowned and said, "You suddenly collapse like this. How can I not worry?" "It's usually not this bad," Shirone said, trying to reassure everyone. Anthor stood by, watching the two of them talk, and a strange, indescribable feeling began to rise in his heart. Seeing that Shirone was okay, Lumina happily spoke up. "All right, let's stop standing here. Are you coming with us? Let's go have some delicious food." Anthor, from behind, joined in excitedly. "Yeah, Shirone, to celebrate the store's discount day, we're having a party at Lumina's house. Come on, we can chat and have fun." "What do you think?" The group of friends immediately agreed, cheering, "Sounds great, approved." Seeing everyone so excited, Shirone smiled and replied, "All right, let's go then." Inside, he thought, "I don't have anything to do right now, so it should be fine." A moment later, the chubby friend and another person brought over a carriage that stopped right in front of the group. Anthor suddenly picked Shirone up and cheerfully said, "You sit in the front seat." Startled by being lifted so suddenly, Shirone cried out, "You can actually lift me?" Anthor laughed heartily and replied, "For someone as light as you, it's nothing." Watching Anthor show off his strength, Shirone thought to himself, "Anthor, you jerk. In the time I haven't seen you, you've turned into a real monster, and now you're even good at business." He carefully observed his friend, silently guessing, it's highly likely that Anthor will become the new leader of the village. With that, Shirone and the group climbed into the carriage, heading toward Lumina's house. A little while later, Lumina's mother's voice rang out, filled with excitement. "Oh my, who's this? Shirone, you're looking more handsome every day. Lumina must be totally smitten." Hearing this, Lumina's face turned bright red, and she quickly shouted, "Mom, stop saying nonsense." After the warm greeting from Lumina's mother, the group continued their fun, laughing and chatting happily. The group raised their glasses together, excitedly shouting, "To our Shirone, cheers!" Looking at the sumptuous feast laid out before him, the brown-haired friend couldn't help but exclaim, "This looks so delicious." Lumina held her glass of water, smiling brightly, and said, "Eat a lot, Shirone." He immediately replied, "Thank you, I'll enjoy it." At the same time, the brown-haired friend curiously pointed at the glass of water and asked, "But is this?" Before he could finish, the chubby friend quickly denied, "No, it's just sparkling barley water." On the other side, Anthor slowly took big gulps, quietly observing everything. Suddenly, the brown-haired friend shouted, "Shirone, tell us more about school. You must be the best in the class, right?" Hearing this, Shirone choked on his water and started coughing uncontrollably. Anthor also spat his drink out because of the comment, causing the whole table to burst into laughter. The brown-haired friend eagerly continued, "I'm so curious. Have you become a wizard now?" The rest of the group also chimed in excitedly, "I heard only nobles get to study at that school. Doesn't that mean you're studying with all the nobles?" Hearing these questions, Shirone felt flustered inside, silently wishing, "Oh my God, please don't praise me in front of Anthor." With the added effect of the barley water, his friends didn't stop. "The nobles must have a lot of beauties, right? Tell us, we're so curious." Under the barrage of questions, Shirone waved his hand and reluctantly replied, "How would I know? I'm too busy with my studies already." As soon as he said this, Lumina let out a sigh of relief, as if she had just survived a crisis. Suddenly, Anthor slammed his glass down on the table and spoke seriously. "Shirone, going to school is good, but have you thought about what comes next?" Shirone turned his head in surprise, exclaiming, "What comes next?" Anthor continued, his voice serious. "Right now, Lord Vincent is shouldering the entire family. Later on, it will be your turn to take responsibility, and you'll have to get married too. After you graduate, do you have the strength to handle it all?" Hearing these words, Shirone fell into deep thought. "There's no guarantee I'll even graduate," he thought to himself. Seeing him remain silent, Anthor raised his glass of barley water, took a sip, and then said, "That's right, you should be a bit more realistic." As soon as Anthor finished speaking, a flood of thoughts rushed into Shirone's mind. Realistic, huh? Thinking back, I've spent so much time focusing on my studies, but I've never thought deeply about this. My friends are all helping their families with business, and yet my father is still working so hard. He silently wondered, when will I be able to help my father? Noticing that Shirone had fallen into deep thought, Lumina looked worried for a moment. Anthor quickly spoke up, breaking the heavy atmosphere. "I didn't mean to bring everyone down." He then laughed loudly and challenged, "Hey, Shirone, how about a good old arm wrestle? You were really good at it back in the day." Shirone was surprised, exclaiming, "Arm wrestle?" The chubby friend immediately got excited. "That's right. Back then, Anthor and Shirone were evenly matched." The brown-haired friend nodded. "Shirone may look like that, but he's really strong, now that I think about it." Hearing this, Shirone suddenly remembered his childhood. It was true that back then, the group often played arm wrestling. That match from years ago made the brown-haired friend shout, "Shirone, you're really good," while Anthor insisted on a rematch, shouting, "That round doesn't count. Let's go again." But today, Shirone thought to himself, it's best to save face for Anthor for the sake of the village. With that thought, he took his stance, smiling as he said, "All right, how about we make a bet on this match?" Anthor grinned with excitement and replied, "Whoever loses has to pay for this meal. Deal?" Shirone nodded. "Deal." The fierce energy from both of them revived the atmosphere. The friends around them eagerly cheered, "The battle between the mage and the warrior." Shirone gripped Anthor's hand tightly, thinking to himself, to save face for Anthor, I have to last as long as I can before losing. Suddenly, a voice shouted, "Start!" Instantly, both hands tensed, each resisting with all their strength. Then, a loud bang echoed, causing the barley water glasses on the table to shake. Lumina and the others watched the scene, their hearts in their throats. In the end, Shirone was sprawled on the chair, looking like he was about to burst into flames. The whole thing happened so quickly that he dazedly wondered what just happened. His friends rushed to him, anxiously asking, "Shirone, are you okay?" Lumina immediately turned to Anthor, raising her voice in anger. "Anthor, why did you use so much strength?" Anthor quickly responded, "I didn't expect it to turn out like this. Back then, he wasn't this weak." Lumina sighed in frustration. "Oh, Anthor. Seeing Shirone in that state, Anthor felt a moment of self-blame. He spoke up, "Sorry about that. I'll pay for today's meal." Shirone immediately waved his hand, refusing. "No way. I lost today, so it's on me." He then smiled awkwardly and added, "You're definitely stronger than before." After saying that, Shirone reached into his pocket to take out his gold coins to pay. But unexpectedly, in his fluster, he dropped the pouch, revealing the shining gold coins. His friends stared in surprise and all exclaimed, "Gold coins, you have 5 of them." Lumina couldn't help herself, picking up one of the coins and asking in shock, "Shirone, why are you carrying so much money? These 5 gold coins are worth a whole month of my sales." Looking at Anthor's expression, Shirone thought to himself, "I'm done for. This is the end of me." Lumina held the gold coin, curiously asking, "Shirone, where did you get all this money?" Shirone stammered, I got sponsored." As soon as he said that, the brown-haired friend immediately jumped in, excitedly saying, "What? So you'll never have to worry about money for the rest of your life?" The comment made Shirone jump in surprise, quickly denying, No, that's not it." Inside, he panicked, thinking, "This is bad." Sure enough, this touched Anthor's pride. His face turned red, and his eyes clearly showed a sense of dissatisfaction. But then, Anthor took a deep breath and exhaled deeply. The next moment, he jumped up like a cat with its fur bristling, shouting loudly, "Why are you all making a big fuss over just a few gold coins?" The chubby friend was startled, stammering, "Sorry." Lumina, observing Anthor's reaction, thought to herself, now that I think about it, this is a sensitive topic for Anthor, Lumina thought to herself. Seeing the tense atmosphere, the group instinctively shrank back, all recalling the past. They all thought, that's right, whenever we were around Shirone when we were kids, Anthor would always become more sensitive. Realizing this, Anthor tried to hold it in, clapping his hands with a loud clap to break the stifling tension. "Oh, right, have you heard this story?" The chubby friend immediately picked up on it, excitedly adding, there's a carnivorous beast spotted on the mountain. The brown-haired friend also joined in. I've heard that too lately. Wild animals have been disappearing, right? Lumina silently felt relieved, thinking, that was a great save, kid. Thanks to this story, everyone slowly regained their lively spirit, eagerly discussing. My dad said it's like a bear. Is that right? Shirone wasn't left out of the conversation, quickly adding, that's right. I also heard my dad talk about it. But how could a creature from the north show up here? Lumina immediately responded, I know. It's probably something to do with the breeding season, right? They say it goes out hunting every day, so everyone has to be careful. But it hides deep in the forest. So as long as we don't go in, it's not really dangerous. Just then, Anthor's gaze sharpened. He spoke up, his voice full of determination. About that, how about we go hunt this creature? The group was taken aback by the sudden suggestion, and they all exclaimed in unison, we? Anthor nodded confidently. Yeah, we'll help the villagers. You all know about it, right? With my skills. He continued confidently, if it's just a bear, the adults don't need to get involved. Let's go take it down together, Anthor declared excitedly. Seeing his soaring enthusiasm, the brown-haired friend also responded with excitement. Finally, you'll hunt a bear yourself, Anthor. A normal bear is easy to deal with. Shirone, as if not believing his ears, repeated in disbelief, really? A bear? Watching his friend's admiring reactions, Anthor smiled triumphantly and decided, all right, we'll leave tomorrow morning. Then he glanced at Shirone and said, you'll definitely join us, right, Shirone? Hearing that, Lumina's eyes sparkled and she exclaimed, Shirone too? Anthor immediately affirmed, of course, he used to go with us before, didn't he? Shirone didn't hesitate and replied right away, if I can help, I'll join. Seeing this, Anthor happily raised his glass and declared, great. Tomorrow morning, let's meet in front of Lumina's house. Lumina sat beside him, cheering, all right. The whole group clinked their glasses, shouting in unison, the bear hunt begins. Wow, we're going hunting with Anthor. Shirone took a sip of the fermented barley water, feeling happy inside. I can't wait anymore. Even though this wasn't part of the plan, it's still so much fun. Time passed in the blink of an eye, and before long, the sky was just beginning to brighten. Lumina opened the door and announced, Shirone, did you sleep well? We're leaving now. Shirone carefully strapped a short knife to his thigh and replied, yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. The two of them stepped out of the house. Lumina excitedly waved her hand ahead, calling out, everything's fine over here. Their friends waved back happily. Seeing them, Anthor called out teasingly, if you fall behind because you haven't done this in a while, we'll leave you behind. Shirone smiled and replied, don't worry. Then, the whole group ventured deeper into the misty forest, surrounded by the early morning fog. After a while, they got to work. Lower it there. That spot, all right? Flip it over. The chubby friend carefully tied the net to a tree branch, signaling the two friends below. Seeing how well the group coordinated, Shirone couldn't help but marvel, you guys set up the net and trap so quickly. You're amazing. The green-haired friend laughed and responded, we just set the trap. The hardest part is for Anthor to handle. At that moment, Anthor was scouting the area. He turned back, his tone serious. From now on, we'll scout this area. If we spot the creature, don't provoke it. Back off immediately and report to me. The group immediately responded in unison, understood. Watching this, Shirone silently admired, wow, Anthor really is an expert. So cool. At that moment, Anthor turned back, his gaze focused on someone, the corner of his mouth curving into a smile. It was Lumina, humming a cheerful tune, looking incredibly cute. After walking a few steps, Shirone suddenly realized, if we search normally, it might take a while. Oh, that's right. If I use the spirit domain, it could help us find it faster. He closed his eyes, focused on gathering his energy, silently thinking, I'll help Anthor find the bear faster. Let's see. In an instant, Shirone entered a state of absolute concentration. But the image that appeared in his mind wasn't a bear, but a creature with a large chunk of its flesh torn and shredded. Shirone jolted, wondering to himself, what is that? He looked back at his friends, a rising sense of unease overwhelming him. Something's not right. I feel strange. Relying on his sharp instincts, Shirone unconsciously took a cautious step forward, his heart full of alertness. Shirone placed his hand over his eyes, stunned as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He reached out to brush the leaves in front of him, his thoughts repeating in his mind, no way, no way. Just as he was about to touch the image that had appeared in his spirit domain, a large hand slammed onto his shoulder, followed by a shout. Shirone! It was Anthor. He yanked Shirone's shoulder, demanding, what are you doing? How dare you disappear without a word? He continued, raising his voice, because of you, we. But his words suddenly halted. The scene before his eyes left Anthor speechless. At their feet lay the corpse of a massive creature, surrounded by countless animal carcasses scattered haphazardly. Anthor was startled, thinking to himself, what are all these? The friends behind them had caught up and stood frozen, shocked by the terrifying sight before them. The carcasses were not only scattered haphazardly on the ground, but also hung suspended from the branches, creating a chilling and eerie scene. The chubby friend panicked, screamed, "What is that, Anthor?" Anthor turned around, about to respond. But before he could finish, Shirone cut in, his voice firm. "We need to retreat. This is not something a normal bear can do." Hearing this, Anthor was stunned, exclaiming, "What?" Shirone continued, his tone serious. "We need to report this to the adults and seal off the mountain. We might even need to send a request to the city for soldiers to come and handle this." Anthor quickly grabbed Shirone's shoulders, stammering and interrupting. Wait, Shirone? Soldiers? What are you talking about?" He tried to keep his composure, saying, "We don't even know what it is yet. Why are you rushing? We can handle this ourselves, right?" Shirone turned his head and responded firmly, "Didn't you see it earlier? This is not a bear we can deal with." Seeing Shirone's resolute expression, Anthor angrily shouted, "What do you know? I'm the leader. Giving orders is my job." Witnessing the conflict between the two, Lumina anxiously clenched her fists and gently intervened. "Anthor, Shirone knows this isn't normal. That's why he's trying to stop you. Please listen to him." But Anthor paid no attention, continuing to shout, "You've always been like this, Shirone. You've never acknowledged me as the leader, right? I told you not to treat me like the fool I was back then." Shirone was stunned, exclaiming, "Anthor!" But just then a rustling sound came from behind, freezing him in place. A chill ran down his spine. The others sensed the change as well. The chubby friend trembled, speaking up. Do you see that? It's coming." Anthor immediately reacted, drawing his bow and aiming it straight ahead, ready to face whatever was approaching. Anthor gritted his teeth, pulling the bowstring back, ready to strike. The others immediately aimed their arrows in the direction of the noise. The brown-haired friend wasn't any different, trembling as he pulled the string, but his arrow slowly aimed higher and higher. What appeared before them terrified him to the core. His whole body shook violently as he stammered, "Anthor, what is that monster?" Before them stood a massive, ferocious wolf, its eyes glowing with bloodlust. Shirone clenched his lips, thinking to himself, a monster, a mysterious entity defying the laws of evolution. Thoughts raced through his mind. "I've seen it in a monster book I read. That thing is..." At that exact moment, Anthor roared and shot an arrow at the creature, shouting, "Die!" But the wolf was as fast as lightning, tilting its head to narrowly dodge the arrow. Seeing the scene unfold, the brown-haired friend screamed in panic. "It dodged the arrow?" Shirone's expression was no better. He immediately recognized it as a werewolf. After its movement, he silently affirmed, "This is a monster with intelligence." From what Shirone knew, monsters in general were stronger and faster than normal beasts. Even more terrifying, some possessed astonishing intelligence. Their origins were still being studied, but there was a theory that they evolved in their own unique way, having lived in environments completely different from other creatures. His friends, terrified, stammered, "It dodged the arrow." The werewolf bared its sharp teeth, eyeing the group with a hungry gaze. Its sharp eyes scanned them, and in the blink of an eye, it lunged forward. The brown-haired friend, his face filled with panic, could only shout, "Run, quickly." The group, knowing they stood little chance of fighting back, hurriedly turned to flee. But the hardest part now was that they didn't know where to run. One person in the group shouted, "If we run down, the monster will..." Just then another voice rang out, "Run up, head for the mountain." As the group scattered in all directions, desperately looking for a way to survive, Shirone stood still. Holding his weapon, he faced the werewolf with unwavering courage. Despite its immense size, Shirone did not appear intimidated. His friends, seeing this, called out in panic, "Shirone!" Anthor thought to himself, "Don't tell me he plans to be bait." Meanwhile, Shirone remained focused. He drew his bow and fired an arrow. However, the werewolf, with its massive form and thick, rough skin, seemed entirely unfazed by the minor injury from the bolt. The werewolf swung its claws in retaliation. Thanks to his smaller size and agility, Shirone managed to dodge the attack. The beast growled in fury, its roar echoing. Shirone panted heavily, thinking to himself, "It moves too fast, and its skin is thick. To ensure everyone survives, there's only one way. I have to lure it away." Despite facing the massive creature, Shirone remained resolute in his risky decision. The beast charged again, but Shirone was lucky enough to dodge and retreat a bit further. Shirone's constant evasions caused the werewolf to lose control, its eyes blazing with rage. But what Shirone didn't expect happened. Suddenly, the monster lost interest in him and turned its head, heading in a different direction. Shirone's heart sank as he realized, no, it's... Before he could stop it, the werewolf charged rapidly toward the group of friends who had managed to escape. The group still hadn't realized the terror that was about to strike. Following the lead of the frontrunner, they shouted, "Drop everything heavy! Hurry up!" Everyone was just focused on running as fast as possible, but Anthor hesitated. His voice was firm as he said, "You guys go ahead." Lumina turned around, worry evident in her voice. "Anthor, what are you doing?" Anthor, tears welling up in his eyes, his body trembling but trying to hold it together, replied, "Shirone, I can't leave him behind." His words hit Lumina like a thunderclap. Tears rolled down her face and she couldn't find the words to respond. She screamed, "Anthor!" By then, the werewolf was very close, only a few steps away from Anthor. The moment between life and death had never seemed so fragile. Anthor turned his head, witnessing the horrifying scene. But the thing that mattered most to him now was, no. Could Shirone be dead? The more Anthor thought about it, the more he lost his composure, blaming himself. "It's because I insisted that he come with me. If I had just listened to Shirone and gone down like he said." Suddenly, a brilliant beam of light shot straight at the werewolf. Anthor stood frozen, confused about what was happening, but it was clear that the creature was howling in pain from the light. Lumina happily ran over, shouting, "It's dead." The group buzzed in confusion, asking, "That's magic, right?" Shirone, drenched in sweat, rushed toward them, barely able to shout, "Run, run, quickly!" Clearly, it wasn't over yet. The danger still loomed, and it was enough to leave Shirone frantic. The werewolf, which seemed to have collapsed, suddenly moved. It slowly sat up, quickly regaining its strength, its whole body radiating a malevolent, vicious aura. Lumina murmured to herself, What's happening? It must just be a flash of light, nothing more." But the massive form of the werewolf charged straight toward them. At this point, it was already too late to run. Anthor sensed something was wrong. He tried to move his legs to check, but his body felt frozen, unable to move. Lumina, putting all her strength into running as fast as she could, staggered under the beast's claws, no longer having the energy to keep going. In that life or death moment, she could have escaped, but she suddenly tripped and fell. Faced with the sharp claws of the werewolf, Lumina seemed to have lost all hope. Tears streamed down her face, but Shirone would not allow his teammate to be harmed. He put all his strength into holding the creature back. It yanked its claws back, aiming them directly at Shirone. His face showed clear terror, but in an instant, Shirone quickly used his teleportation technique. The werewolf panicked and looked up. The beam of light from earlier appeared again, followed by a deafening explosion. Lumina shouted loudly, "Shirone, that beam! It's holding an incredibly strong energy." The beam struck the beast, embedding deep into its body, causing its strength to noticeably wane. Shirone, confused, thought to himself, "All right, what should I do now? I plan to push it away after releasing the photon, but if I do that, it'll scratch me. I can't force it into a defensive position either. Right now, neither I nor the creature are in the clear light zone." Suddenly, an idea struck him. The way to throw it off. Make it fall. He quickly considered his options. 1, attack with photons. 2, create gravity to suppress it. 3, break its balance. Shirone extended his hand, lightly touching his own hand in another world, as though connecting with a mysterious dimension. Shirone thought to himself, "I've touched it." His hands interlocked tightly, creating a dazzling beam of light, the moment of enlightenment to unknown knowledge. The two-dimensional space dissolved, and only Shirone stood there, resolute. He murmured, "It's mass." The werewolf growled in fury, its eyes filled with confusion, glaring at Shirone. Before it could understand what was happening, it was thrown back by Shirone's attack, sent flying a great distance. Without hesitation, Shirone pressed on, continuing his assault. The beast howled fiercely, but was powerless against his strength. In the brief moments when Shirone made his impact on the wolf, a small flash of light flickered in his mind. Why does this world exist? A flood of questions rushed to him. What does existence mean? What is mass? Before Shirone, a brilliant golden light began to expand, like the mysterious void that had appeared in his dream. "It's a world of asymmetry," Shirone murmured. In the space where the beam of light dominated, cracks suddenly appeared. The streams of light moved with greater intensity, and he continued, "If the universe existed before everything else was created, then the way everything exists is by breaking the balance of the universe." He extended his hand, touching a small crack in the space. The crack quickly spread, the space shattering like glass, revealing a hazy void before Shirone's eyes. "Mass is what makes this possible, and it can be transferred into the photons of light," he thought to himself. Reflecting on the moment when he struck the werewolf, a thunderous explosion erupted, accompanied by powerful shockwaves that shook the very cliffs. Amid the dust and smoke, a brilliant golden light appeared in the air. From that point of light, the stream of energy flowed backward, and the figure of Shirone materialized, kneeling on the ground, moving so fast that the naked eye could scarcely keep up. Shirone silently observed the scene before him, the rumbling from the aftershocks still echoing. He waited tensely, his eyes wide with vigilance, not daring to relax, his breathing rapid. Ha! It's over. It's moving. He cautiously looked at the massive werewolf, now lying motionless on the ground. Shirone's eyes widened in surprise, as if he had just made a sudden realization. Amen, I understand now. Symmetry can be disrupted by a type of knowledge of space, knowledge that has no name. There's a mechanism that creates mass for matter. If this mechanism is used, light can also be assigned mass. A joyful expression spread across Shirone's face. I finally understand. He focused his gaze on the creature before him. Such a dangerous being. Why would it appear in this mountainous region? Shirone mused, his mind filled with doubt. Why didn't I think of that? Shirone chastised himself. Suddenly, a terrifying howl pierced through his thoughts. The wolves! Shirone spun around, looking up at the cliff's peak with suspicion. But I'm not alone, he thought. On the cliff, Anthor and the others were horrified, their faces pale. Some couldn't hold back, tears streaming down their faces. Before them was a pack of werewolves, advancing step by step. Leading them was the alpha wolf, its eyes glowing with a malicious red gleam. Anthor's group was backed up to the edge of the cliff, trembling with fear. They instinctively looked to Anthor's back for reassurance. Martini shakily called out, Anthor! Lumina cried out loudly, in a panic. Anthor's expression was no better, as he struggled to contain the rising terror in his eyes. Anthor gritted his teeth, his voice tense. I'll run to the other side. You all climb down the cliff right now. The red-haired friend panicked, shouting, Are you crazy? Do you want to die? Anthor, with visible stress, snapped back. This is the only way now. He turned to look at his friends, tears sparkling at the corners of his eyes. You all have to survive so that my and Shirone's sacrifices won't be in vain. As the situation grew increasingly dire, a flash of light appeared above them like a torch of hope. From the deep blue sky, Shirone descended, using his teleportation magic, leaving the group stunned. Are you all right? The others rushed to him, both relieved and worried. I thought you were dead, Lumina, emotional, cried without stopping. Shirone quietly looked at his friends for a moment, then spoke in a somber tone. I'm sorry, everyone. Shirone, Anthor's voice rang out. He clenched his lips, trying to maintain his composure, but the expression on his face betrayed his anxiety. Sorry for making you worry, Anthor. Shirone gently patted his friend's shoulder, then said, Now, leave them to me. Anthor watched in shock as Shirone stepped toward the pack of werewolves. Seeing him walk straight into danger, Anthor yelled, Are you crazy? But Shirone, without hesitation, calmly responded, It's fine. This isn't against the rules. He resolutely advanced, his steps unwavering as he faced the danger ahead. On the other side, the bloodthirsty werewolves roared fiercely. Each one charged toward Shirone and the group with terrifying speed. The distance between Shirone and the alpha wolf quickly closed as it furiously lunged straight at him. Shirone remained unshaken, his calm demeanor unwavering. Instead, he focused, gathering his energy into a glowing orb in the palm of his hand. Seeing the light, Lumina exclaimed in amazement, the red-haired friend confused added, but it's different from before. Before them, Shirone let his magical power flow. A magic circle appeared between his forehead as he concentrated intensely. Mass is transferred into the photons, he thought to himself. The light orb in Shirone's hand grew larger, radiating an immense power. Sensing that the magic was ready, he decisively acted. In an instant, Shirone swung his hand and threw the orb forward. The orb shot through the air with incredible speed, leaving a trail of light and a whistling sound in the air, heading straight for the alpha werewolf. The creature had no time to react before the orb slammed into its neck. The beam of light pierced through the beast's body like an arrow, accompanied by a painful, echoing scream. This is my magic, Shirone gasped, his eyes wide in disbelief, thinking to himself, I did it. Seeing his packmate knocked back, another werewolf howled in fury. One by one, the wolves grew agitated, charging straight at Shirone. They swiped their sharp claws, eager to tear him apart, but Shirone wouldn't let that happen. He quickly focused his magical energy, dodging the attack and teleporting into the air, leaving the wolves confused and staring after him. Shirone conjured another orb of light. In that instant, his eyes flashed with light, and several familiar figures briefly flickered in his vision. Boom, boom. A series of beams shot through the werewolves' tough bodies like a meteor shower, leaving them no time to react. Amidst the swirling dust, the screams of pain and helplessness from the werewolves echoed nonstop. The sight left Anthor and the entire group stunned, unable to believe what they were witnessing. One of them unconsciously exclaimed, That's a wizard. Anthor immediately responded, It's him. Before their eyes, Shirone was using magic, moving swiftly through the battle, taking down each werewolf one by one. However, this magic also drained a significant amount of his mental energy. Shirone panted, trying to catch his breath. Just as he was resting to recover, a werewolf suddenly charged from behind, attempting to ambush him. Without hesitation, Shirone gathered his magic energy and immediately blasted it away with a beam of light. The werewolf trembled, groaning in pain after the attack. However, it quickly realized that the power of the strike wasn't enough to inflict the heavy damage it had before. A flicker of panic flashed in Shirone's eyes. The magic power. It's diminishing, he thought, feeling a deep sense of unease. On the other side, the cunning werewolf flashed a victorious grin. It quickly regained its composure, letting out a thunderous roar, summoning its packmates. The other werewolves, having recovered, charged forward like a wave of fury, fueled by an adrenaline rush. Lumina shouted, "Run, Shirone!" As Shirone saw the fierce pack of werewolves rushing toward him, he heard his friend's terrified screams behind him. Fatigue overwhelmed him, his breathing heavy, but he furrowed his brows, showing no sign of giving up. Gritting his teeth, Shirone focused his mental energy once more, preparing for the battle ahead. "Can I do this?" he panted, thinking to himself. "I still have one more option." His eyes gleamed with a jade-like glow. As the swirling vortex of water appeared before his eyes, Shirone wondered, "But can I really do this?" Shirone focused, maintaining the swirling vortex of water before him. Ahead, the large pack of werewolves charged forward in a frenzy. Anthor and Lumina panicked, with Anthor shouting, "Shirone, it's too dangerous." Lumina crying pleaded, "Please, run, Shirone." She called out his name in desperation, but Shirone seemed to hear nothing, standing firm and facing the oncoming horde of monsters. His gaze was sharp, though his face couldn't hide the tension. Sweat trickled down his forehead, his lips tightly pressed together. Suddenly, Shirone's pupils glowed with a piercing, icy blue. In his infinite subconscious, he connected with an endless source of energy, a supreme power, deep and limitless, like a black hole. From that black hole, a terrifying surge of power erupted, so overwhelming that Shirone himself was pushed back by the immense pressure. Shirone gritted his teeth, raising both hands to shield himself, desperately trying to withstand the torrent of tremendous magical energy. His body began to disintegrate into dust under the weight of such power. Despite this, he persevered, focusing his mind, channeling his magic to confront the pack of beasts. In that moment, a surge of supernatural energy erupted from Shirone's hands. The fierce werewolves charged at him, but they were immediately obliterated by the abundant spiritual power emanating from him. Shirone's strength crystallized into brilliant green rays, scorching the werewolves. Though they were numerous, they couldn't break through the wall of power he had created. Witnessing this overwhelming force, Lumina and the village children stood frozen in shock. Anthor was equally stunned, unable to believe his eyes, muttering to himself, How is this possible?" Anthor thought to himself, "Even though I'm witnessing this firsthand, it's still so hard to believe." Suddenly, a dark gray werewolf, using the pack in front as cover, lunged forward, swinging its sharp claws toward Shirone. Fortunately, he managed to channel his magic in time and sent it flying. But Shirone could feel his body beginning to give out. "My energy. I won't be able to last like this. My spiritual power. My mind. It's going to fade like the wind." Then, he suddenly remembered. "That's right. Just like last time." Shirone recalled the moment when he had transferred the immortality energy into the crystal orb. At that time, his power flowed through a conduit, almost causing him to disintegrate. He tried to recall the specific actions he had taken to escape the deadly danger when he placed his hand on the crystal orb. "I have to release all the energy in my body," Shirone shouted, channeling all his willpower, thinking to himself, "I'll unleash my full strength in this direction." His hand extended, decisively unleashing his most powerful strike, aimed straight at the pack of werewolves. The force of Shirone's power was so immense that the trees around him shook, and dust was swept into the whirlwind. The enraged werewolves, charging toward him, were instantly consumed by his energy, completely incinerated. A brilliant golden beam shot forward from Shirone, sweeping everything in its path. After a moment, everything fell quiet. A single leaf gently drifted to the ground. Before him was a clear, wide-open view, with the battlefield now calm. The remaining werewolves, weakened and trembling, could no longer stand after enduring the terrifying attack. One werewolf stubbornly bared its teeth, growling fiercely. Shirone's figure gradually became visible through the dust. He stood there, his gaze cold as he looked at the defiant werewolf. His voice was sharp and filled with menace. "Leave!" Shirone glared at it, warning, "Never come back." The pack of werewolves immediately recoiled in fear. The alpha wolf turned and led the remaining survivors, fleeing at full speed without daring to look back. Shirone stood still for a moment, but soon his body swayed, exhausted beyond measure. Unable to hold on any longer, he fell backward. Anthor quickly rushed to him, catching him just in time. The village children ran over, surrounding him. Lumina, her eyes red and swollen, tears streaming down her cheeks, gently reached out to stroke Shirone's forehead. Anthor looked at everyone sadly and said, "Let's go home." Anthor watched Shirone panting, awkwardly saying, "This foolish hunt is over." The night fell, with the flickering light from simple thatched roofs casting a soft glow. On the grassy field, Shirone gazed up at the stars, admiring their mysterious, sparkling beauty. Anthor slowly approached, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth as he asked, "How long have you been out here?" Shirone looked at Anthor and smiled, replying, "After a deep sleep, I just felt like watching the stars." Anthor sat down beside him, nodding. "Yeah, it's nice." Shirone reflected. It had been so long since he'd had such a peaceful sleep. "I don't even remember the last time I slept soundly without nightmares or supernatural visions disturbing me," he thought. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the village children gathered around his bed, crying bitterly when they saw him wake up. Shirone, still dazed, asked, "Where am I?" Lumina, sniffling, said, "We thought you wouldn't wake up." Shirone, moved, thought to himself, "I slept like the dead, yet no one left my side even for a moment until I woke up." He turned to Anthor and asked, "Where is everyone else?" Anthor replied, "They're busy in the kitchen." He went on to recount what had happened after Shirone lost consciousness. "Anyway, it's such a relief. Aside from Lumina falling, no one else got hurt. But we were really shocked by your power." Shirone smiled softly at that. "It's a relief indeed." Anthor looked up at the sky casually, saying, "Tomorrow, I'll help the adults handle everything. The skins and teeth of those monsters are worth a lot." He then asked absent-mindedly, "What did you say they were called again?" Shirone answered, "Werewolves. I heard their fangs are very expensive." Anthor laughed, marveling, "That's right." After a moment of silence, Anthor awkwardly spoke up, "I'm sorry, Shirone." Shirone, confused and flustered, responded, "Huh? No, I also..." Anthor didn't look at Shirone, his gaze fixed on the distance. His voice was low. "Actually, I was just jealous of you." Shirone was taken aback. "Huh?" Anthor sank into his memories. One cold winter day, snow falling heavily, Shirone sat alone, absorbed in a book. Anthor, Lumina, and the other village children happened to pass by. A boy wearing glasses spoke up. "Do you guys know, sometimes Shirone looks really cool? I wonder why?" Hearing that, Anthor glanced at Shirone. His pensive, thoughtful expression truly made others sense something special about him, and it sparked a little envy. Anthor awkwardly continued, "Your dream," Shirone blinked in confusion. "My dream?" Anthor nodded. "Yeah, the dream you're chasing." At this point, he blushed, embarrassed, and avoided Shirone's gaze, awkwardly continuing, "I hope you'll achieve it." Hearing Anthor's sincere words, Shirone smiled brightly. He happily replied, "Yeah, thank you." The two sat together under the starry sky, the peaceful scene around them feeling strangely serene. The next morning in the small village, Lumina, with a hint of regret, pleaded, "You're leaving so soon? Why not stay another day?" Shirone shook Anthor's hand, reluctantly saying, "I'd love to, but there's still so much unfinished research at the academy." Anthor understood and didn't press, simply saying, "Well, see you later, Shirone." Standing at the front of the village children, he sincerely wished, "May you become a great mage." Shirone smiled, "I'll come back to visit you all. See you soon." Lumina suddenly ran up to Shirone, throwing her arms around him, crying softly, "You must come back. You better not ignore me once you become a wizard, or you're going to regret it." Shirone laughed. "I won't forget." He waved goodbye to everyone, calling out, "Take care." The village children waved back, sending him off. Anthor placed a hand on Lumina's shoulder, sighing, "Oh my, look at my little sister crying with her eyes all red." He teased, "If you miss him so much, should I go catch him for you?" Lumina wiped her tears away and muttered, "What? It's not like he's leaving forever." She looked up, watching Shirone's figure fade into the distance, her voice filled with admiration. "Shirone is really amazing." Every time he chases after his dreams, Lumina kept watching him until his silhouette disappeared behind the distant trees. After leaving the village, Shirone carried his bag and stopped by a place. He paused at Estes, taking out a book to read. As he flipped through it, memories of a previous conversation with Need came flooding back. He recalled asking Need, "There's something I'm curious about. How do we find the research room among 89 buildings?" Need had explained, "Since you're a new member, I'll show you how to find it." He pointed toward a corner of the wall. "Do you see the number on the ceiling?" Shirone had replied, "It's 19, Need continued. "Next, you need to look at the color of the door." Recalling this, Shirone turned his head to the right. A yellow door appeared before him. He noted the distinctive features in his mind and carefully thought, "Room 19, yellow door is number 5. So, he took a few more steps, muttering to himself, "Then I'll come to a fork in the road." Shirone looked left and right, silently noting, "So that means there are 3 corridors connected to this place, right?" He quickly jotted everything down in his notebook, then performed a few calculations. After that, I need to substitute them one by one with 10, y, and z, and then form an equation. The answer is what we call the master key of Estes. He still remembered his surprised expression when Need had explained. Who would have thought of this? He had exclaimed. Need had told him, I heard one of the founding members had an eidetic memory. It was that person who created this equation, memorizing the entire structure of Estes into something. Need had squinted his eyes and smiled. The first time I showed Eriki the equation, he said, Shirone's memories paused as he pushed open the purple door. He glanced inside. A hallway led to a room with 2 branching paths on either side. Shirone marveled, truly, it's a magnificent equation. He approached the room at the end of the corridor. Hanging on the door was a sign, Supernatural Spiritual Science Research Group. Before he could enter, Shirone heard a heated argument. One voice questioned, why are you revealing this now? Didn't I tell you there's a 57% chance of winning? The other person refused to relent, immediately retorting, nonsense. I've wasted so much time just listening to you. The one being questioned responded, don't you understand? The bigger the specimen, the higher the accuracy. The other person angrily yelled, that's if you had unlimited money, you lunatic. Shirone grasped the doorknob and gently turned it. In his hand was the notebook containing the equation. He thought to himself, it's just like gathering all the clues to find the research group through Estes. The door slowly creaked open, and Shirone reflected, I've also learned that inside, Need and Haruki were having an intense argument. Shirone greeted, so you guys are back after losing everything? As soon as Haruki saw Shirone, he quickly called out, Shirone. But Need immediately cut in, speaking loudly, Shirone, listen to me. You'll understand in a moment. Shirone only smiled quietly. Seeing him stand there without speaking, simply smiling, Haruki asked in confusion, why is he just standing there smiling like that? A deep sense of gratitude surged within Shirone. Everyone, thank you for everything, he thought, a bright smile spreading across his face. I'm back now. At the 48th training field, Shirone raised one hand, channeling his spiritual energy, forming a shimmering golden magic orb. Need, hands behind his head, curiously asked, is this what you wanted to show us? Is it photon emission? Are you increasing the output strength or something? Need asked, his voice full of curiosity. Haruki, standing beside him, shook his head. No, it's something else. He pointed out the oddity in the way Shirone was casting the spell. Photon emission should radiate outward, but this is radiating inward. Need then noticed and focused his attention. Suddenly, Shirone unleashed a powerful strike, shattering the rock in front of him. The immense force left Need and Haruki wide-eyed, both exclaiming in unison, what? Need ran over, feeling the crack on the rock, his voice filled with shock. What is this? You use light to make a hole in it? This is magic. This is real magic. Haruki, curious, asked, then what about the spells I've been using? Need chuckled awkwardly and waved his hand dismissively. Ah, that was just a little joke from me. Shirone explained, this is the spell I developed. He spoke slowly. I call it photon cannon. Haruki scratched his chin, deep in thought. Photon, as I understand it, is a form of fusuna, perfect combination of 2 types of perception. But everything related to photons is extremely difficult. What kind of spell is this? Shirone suggested, I'll explain, but let's do it at a restaurant outside the academy. Haruki's eyes widened, stammering, really? Need, sitting beside him, was equally stunned. He asked in astonishment, you added mass to photons? That's impossible. Could you do something similar with electricity? Need, no longer interested in eating, set his plate down and stared at Shirone. This is incredible. You can add mass to a particle that normally has no mass. Need wiped the sweat off his forehead, still unable to believe what Shirone had just said. My head's spinning like a top. So, you really did it? A new knowledge? Shirone replied casually, thanks to that, the discomfort I felt inside has vanished. Finally, I understand the meaning behind the nightmares that haunted me. Hearing this, Need couldn't hide his joy, exclaiming, this is incredible. If you can systematize this knowledge, hypothesize, and then make it a reality, this would be a world-shaking discovery in the magical world. No, it should be the whole world. Haruki, though excited, still had doubts. It is amazing, but understanding the theory behind it doesn't mean you can easily use photon magic. Even if you achieve omniscient enlightenment, helping others understand it the way you do is a completely different matter. Need wiped the sweat from his brow, muttering, this is bigger than we thought. Shirone spoke slowly. That's why I want to ask you both something. He smiled and shared his plan with Need and Haruki. I want to research this more deeply. But since it's vacation time, we can't get into the Academy's library, right? I can't go to the Noble's library on my own, so could you two take me there? Need asked with concern. There's no problem with that, but why can't you get in? Does it have something to do with what you just mentioned? At this question, Shirone lowered his gaze, pausing in silence for a moment. He thought to himself, if I tell them the truth, will they still treat me the same way? But if I keep hiding it, they'll never truly become my close friends. He raised his head and looked directly into the eyes of his two close friends, his expression full of determination. After a moment of careful consideration, Shirone made up his mind. No, I won't hide anymore. He took a deep breath, looked directly at Need and Iruki, and spoke the truth. I'm not a noble. I'm just a commoner. Hearing this, Need was stunned, his eyes wide open. Shirone's words struck Iruki like a thunderclap. Shirone continued in a solemn tone. When I was a baby, I was abandoned in a horse stall. My current parents found me and raised me. My father is just an ordinary hunter. After Shirone shared his past, the three fell silent. No one spoke, and the atmosphere became heavy. After a while, Need spoke, breaking the strange silence. I've been wondering why you've seemed so gloomy lately, but so what? Does it really matter? Iruki, with a deep voice, cut in. Of course it matters. Need turned to face Iruki, his eyes filled with a challenge. Iruki exploded, shouting, What did you say? Whether it's magic or academics, isn't this guy only in his first year? In just 3 months, he's climbed all the way to the 5th class, and he even defeated me in front of the entire school. Need and Shirone stared at Iruki in shock as he continued to yell. Not to mention, despite his disability, he's dating a genius sorceress. Need quickly covered Iruki's mouth, trying to stop him from causing more chaos. He smiled brightly and turned to Shirone. Shirone, your background doesn't matter to us at all. Need cupped his hands into a heart shape and winked. To me, you're one of a kind. I love you to death. Shirone froze for a moment, then became so emotional that tears welled up in his eyes. He choked up saying, Thank you both. Iruki scoffed and teased Need. What do you mean, love you to death? Cut the sappiness out. Wait a minute, Amy knows about this too? Need curiously turned to Shirone. How long have you two known each other? Shirone sighed helplessly and replied, Well, since we were kids. At first our relationship wasn't great, Need eagerly exclaimed. Tell me, I'm so curious. Turning back the clock, 5 years ago, in the capital city of Tormia, the town of Basuka. In the Radom slums, a child dressed in tattered, filthy clothes, holding a piece of moldy bread, was running for his life. Behind him, a group of aggressive individuals wielding knives and sticks chased after him. The sound of shouting echoed, You little bastard, daring to steal from us? You want to die, Canis? Canis panted heavily, stumbling as he ran. Before long, he dragged his tired steps into a damp, foul-smelling corner. Canis called out, Irene! In the dilapidated room, a frail girl lay on an old wooden plank. Canis called again, Erin. Her face was pale, her breath coming in heavy, labored gasps. Panicked, Canis asked, What's wrong? Does it hurt a lot? As he spoke, he handed Irene the moldy piece of bread he had just stolen. Look, here's some bread. You can't die. Tears welled up in Canis's eyes as he desperately cried out, Please, is there anyone? But when he turned around, the 3 men who had been chasing him were now standing behind him, their faces twisted with malice. Got you now, they snarled. Immediately, Canis received a harsh slap across the face. His thin, frail body was thrown back, tumbling away. Canis screamed in agony, his cries drowned out by the brutal laughter of the heartless men. In his pain, he thought to himself, This is the place I should have never been found. Canis weakly raised his hand, struggling to block the relentless kicks from the large man. As he punched and kicked, the man cursed, You little brat, where do you think you're running off to? Canis, feeling powerless, thought to himself, Now I've been found. The brutal man picked up the piece of bread Canis had stolen and chewed it loudly, mocking him. Canis, you're nothing but garbage. You dared to steal this precious bread and eat it all by yourself? He laughed maliciously. Behind him, a muscular thug lifted Irene over his shoulder. The violent man kicked Canis in the face, cursing, You filthy brat. Canis, filled with rage, screamed, I'll kill you if you touch Irene, he cursed. All of you, I'll kill you all. But in response to the threats of a mere child, the thugs just laughed scornfully, treating his words like a joke. They burst into loud, mocking laughter, as if they had just heard the funniest thing in the world. Did you hear that? He said he'll kill us. One of the men sat down, taunting Canis, Keep trying. Maybe you'll get them in your next life. Then he gestured to the blond man, saying, What are you waiting for? Finish him off already. The blond man raised his sharp knife, preparing to strike Canis down. Seeing the gleaming blade, Canis gritted his teeth, filled with hatred as he thought, If only I had the strength. Irene, witnessing her brother's impending death, cried out in agony. In that moment, Canis wished with all his heart, If only I. He glanced at the 3 despicable men before him one last time. Just then, all 3 suddenly froze. A strange black smoke materialized before their eyes, swirling ominously. To Canis and Irene, it seemed like the smoke had a will of its own. In the blink of an eye, it snatched away the lives of the 3 burly men. They screamed in terror. What the hell is this? Canis lay motionless, his eyes wide in shock, stunned by the bizarre sight before him. The blood of the 3 men splattered across his face, leaving him bewildered as he wondered, what just happened? The blood trickled across his eyes, and Canis's pupils contracted, reflecting the utmost terror. After taking down the 3 men, the strange black smoke spiraled around Irene, lifting her into the air. Irene floated in the midst of the eerie mist. Then, the smoke gently lowered her down, placing her safely into Canis's arms. The smoke gradually gathered together. Soon, from the darkness, a figure slowly emerged. Canis stared at the figure before him. A raspy, unfamiliar voice echoed in his ears. The figure had a horrifying face, 2 empty, white eyes, a mouth stretched wide with dark red edges, extending to the ears, radiating a chilling, ghostly presence. The figure spoke in a raspy voice, asking Canis, is magic fun, isn't it? Fresh blood dripped from the dark figure's mouth, staining Canis's face. Suddenly, Canis broke into a manic smile, a silent agreement with the dark figure. In the capital city of the kingdom of Tormia, as night descended, the city was ablaze with lights. On the roof of a building opposite the museum, a shadow quietly observed from above. It was Canis. He remarked, the security here is quite heavy. Indeed, the security team was constantly patrolling around the museum, leaving no gaps. Irene, standing next to him, exclaimed, this is the first time I've seen so many holy relics. Their archaeological value is immense. Canis, fully aware of the worth of these artifacts, asked Irene, and what about our target? Irene replied. Our target is the core of the mana control system. The holy relic, Long Tum, Irene revealed. It's locked in a room on the 3rd floor guarded by about 15 security personnel. She specifically warned Canis, but before you can take the holy relic, the core of the mana control system, you can't use your spiritual power inside the building, Canis pondered. No magic, huh? Then I'll have to go in on my own, Irene advised. Be careful, Canis. Canis merely smiled coldly. In the blink of an eye, he leapt toward the museum. In the darkness, he was like a shadow using dark magic. His magical energy transformed into enormous black serpents, easily piercing through the museum's walls. He dashed straight toward the glass door, decisively shattering it and rushing in, much to the astonishment of the security personnel. What the hell is going on? We have an intruder, the security personnel shouted in unison. Canis's eyes were cold, radiating intense bloodlust. He spoke in a low voice. Now. Immediately, Canis cast his magic, ruthlessly taking down every security guard in his path. With a single surge of his power, they were thrown back, crashing hard into the walls. One of them exclaimed, how is he using magic? In the blink of an eye, Canis had taken down nearly all the security team, leaving only a few still weakly trying to resist. Intruder, activate the alarm. Capture him. He's a sorcerer, Irene urged. Hurry, Canis. Canis immediately sped up. Without wasting much energy, he effortlessly knocked aside anyone who tried to block him. Soon, the door leading to the core of the mana control system appeared before him. Canis kicked open the door and rushed inside. Thinking to himself, found it, he quickly grabbed the core of the mana control system. Holding the core in his hand, Canis surveyed the room. Behind him, the security personnel swarmed in, shouting, he's here! Upon realizing that Canis had taken the core, one of them gasped. The core of the mana control system has, before he could finish his sentence, he was knocked unconscious by Canis's magic. Not just him, but the rest of the security guards fell one by one. Slow, deliberate footsteps echoed, drawing closer to Canis. The person approaching radiated a powerful aura. Canis glanced over, calmly saying, perfect timing, Irene. The person was indeed Irene. She looked around, then turned her gaze toward Canis and asked, Canis, wait, you didn't kill anyone, right? Irene asked, her voice filled with worry. Canis reassured her, pointing at the security personnel lying motionless on the floor. Don't worry, I just knocked them out. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rang out. Outside the museum, the guards had completely surrounded the area. A middle-aged man's voice echoed with fury. I don't know how you managed to bypass the mana control system to use magic, but this ends here. The man, dressed in a suit, his eyes burning with rage, gathered fire-based spiritual energy in his hand and declared aggressively, if you don't return everything you've taken, don't even think about leaving here. In the thick smoke and fire, two shadows, Canis and Arena, stood still, unwavering. Canis and Irene stared coldly at the man in the suit. Gradually, their figures became clear, and in no time, they were fully visible before him. The man was stunned, stammering, dark mages. Without hesitation, Canis unleashed a powerful surge of dark energy, completely overwhelming his opponent. The man struggled to raise his arms to defend himself, but it was futile. As the man began to regain his composure, Canis and Irene had vanished without a trace. He stood there in shock, muttering, They disappeared? Below, a soldier quickly reported, Commander, the core of the mana control system has been stolen. The man immediately ordered, "No signs of teleportation. They must still be around here." "Find them quickly," the man in the suit commanded. The soldiers replied in unison, "Understood."